I will show you how to create your own custom dialog balloon, complete with dialog scripts. You can interact with other characters so that you can then show the dialogue to your player and also take some actions. So to create our dialog balloon and scripts, I'm going to use a plugin by Nathan Horde. So head over to the asset library and search for Dialog Manager and just open up this manager here, and we will download and install that into our project. So click download and then install the add-on and then just click OK. Then in the root folder, create a new folder and call this dialog and then click OK. Then right click the folder and set the folder color to teal. Then head over to project settings, plugins, and just enable the dialog manager and click close. And now let's head back over to the add-ons folder and just expand the dialog manager. And in example balloon, copy the example balloon script and the scene and just say move and duplicate to, and then just choose your dialog folder and then choose copy. Then rename this scene to game dialog balloon and rename this script to base game dialog balloon. Then open the base game dialog balloon script and rename the class to base game dialog balloon. Then open the game dialog balloon scene and on the example balloon rename this to game dialog balloon and then open the script and just detach that. Then create a new script on the game dialog balloon and just call it game dialog balloon.gd and create that. Then open that script and extend from base game dialog balloon. And that sets up the game dialog balloon with the right script. Now let's head over to the 2D view, and before we style this balloon, let's go back to our dialog folder and create a conversational script. So create a new folder and call this conversations and click OK. So open the conversations folder, then choose the dialog option here and click new, and then call this file guide, OK, and it will create you a guide.dialog script. Now just rename this to say start, and that's the entry point of the script. And then to start again, we just copy that and just paste that here. Now we will use this default script to help style the dialogue, and then we will modify this script for our own custom conversation. So head back over to scenes and in characters and the guide folder, open the guide scene and then just open that script here. Then we need to add a new input map. So go to project settings, and in input map, add a new action called show dialog and add that. And then for the plus button, press the E key and then OK and click close. Then in the guide script at the top, save our balloon scene equals, and then use preload, and then choose dialog, game dialog balloon scene. And then let's create a new function and override the unhandled input event, and then say if event dot is action pressed show dialog, then bar balloon, which is type base game dialog balloon, equals the balloon scene, then instantiate. Then use getTree dot current scene, add child, and then add the balloon. And say balloon dot start, and then load, and then use the guide.dialog script, then comma and the string start. So we head back to the dialog. We are going to start this script here and pass in the start function. So we start at this point here. Let's go back to the guide script. Now let's pop a breakpoint on line 24, and this is where we create the balloon scene. Then go to scenes test folder and just open the test scene guide dialog, and then let's run this scene. Now press the E key on the keyboard and we can see that this event is now called, and we are going to create the balloon scene and load the guide dialog. So let's just F12 that to run, and we can see that the dialog has now loaded in the balloon. Press the space bar and we can start again. And if you go back to dialog, the start again calls the beginning of the dialog script. Let's go back to our game, press the space bar again, and then let's just end that conversation. As you can see though, you can press the E key at any point, but you should only be allowed to show the dialog balloon once we are in range of the guide. So let's just solve that. So at the top of the guide script, add another variable called inRange, which is a type of bool, and then on interactable activated, set this to true, and on interactable deactivated, set this back to false. Then in the unhandled method, say if inRange, then let's check if the action is pressed. Just remove that breakpoint here. So now let's test the scene again, just run the current scene and press the E on the keyboard and no balloon is showing. So let's move towards the guide. Now the on interactable is activated and press the E key, and now we get the dialog. So head back to game dialog balloon scene, and we will now style our dialog balloon. Go to the dialog folder and right click and create new resource and search for theme and create that and call it dialog balloon theme and click save, and then click on balloon, scroll down to theme and just remove that, then click quick load and choose dialog balloon theme and open that. Then double click the dialog balloon theme to load it, and let's now add a new style type. So let's click the plus button here and we'll style the panel to begin with. So search for panel and choose add type, and then choose this option here and click the plus button. This will just override the style, so click a new empty style and then choose new style box texture. Then open the style box texture, and then for the texture property, click and then create a new atlas texture. Open that, then go back to assets and UI folder and just bring in the basic UI sprites. Then edit region, then with auto slice selected, just zoom in and choose this option here. Click close, then just collapse the atlas texture and scroll down to sub-region and click edit region. Then zoom in and choose pixel snap and just bring in the bars to frame our panel. Click close, and then the next thing to style is the dialog, and this derives from margin container. So back on our theme, let's add a new style type and search for margin container and then add that type. Choose this option here and then add for each of the items and use a margin of 10. And now let's resize the panel. Just scroll to the top and for custom minimum size, choose 400 for X and 70 for Y, and then choose anchor center bottom. Then click on dialog node and then choose the anchor preset and choose full rep. Then click back on panel and for transform and size, put 70 for Y and then anchor again to the bottom. And for position, choose 270 for Y. Then click on the responses node and scroll down to size and just reset that, and that will position it here. Then go to anchor preset and choose center. Then click on character label node and open the theme, and then let's add another type here and write character name text and then click add type. Then choose this option here, click the plus button and search for a rich text label and set that base type here. Then click back on the label here, just scroll down and in type variation, let's edit that and write character name text and just accept that. Then back on the theme, for character name text, let's just zoom in, and for normal font size, let's just click the plus button and change that to be 14 and enter. Then let's add another style type and write dialog text and then click add type. Choose this option here and add another base type and search for rich text label and then set that base type. Then choose dialog label node here and scroll down, and then for theme and type variation, just edit that and write dialog text and just accept that. Then back on the theme, for dialog text, click this option here and override the normal font size style and write 12. Now choose the response example node and then open the theme again and click add for a new style type and search for button and choose the button option and add that type. And choose this option here and scroll down to normal and click the plus button to override the style. Click empty, a new style box texture, then open the texture, and for the texture property, choose new atlas texture and open that. And for the atlas, go back to assets and UI folder and bring over the basic UI sprites. Then click edit region, zoom out and choose auto slice, then zoom in and pick this option here. Select that and click close. Then collapse atlas texture and scroll down to sub-region and choose edit region. Then for snap mode, choose pixel snap, zoom in and just bring in the bars to frame the button. And once that's framed, click close. Then right click normal style, click copy, and then for press style, override the item, right click and paste. This will then paste the style from normal, but right click and say make unique recursive and click OK. Then open the press style and open the atlas texture and click edit region. Then choose auto slice and scroll in and choose this option here. Then click close. And then for sub-region, we don't need to configure it again because we've copied from the previous style. So click close. So right click the style for pressed, click copy, and then scroll to hover and override that item. Right click and paste, right click again and make unique recursive. Click OK, and then open the hover style. For texture, open the atlas texture and scroll down to edit region. Then for hover style, just scroll in and choose this option here. Then click close, and we don't need to edit sub-region again as that is now pre-configured. So right click the hover style, click copy, and for focus, override that style. Right click empty, paste the style, right click again, and make unique recursive, and OK. Now we don't need to do anything with the focus style, we'll just make a whole copy of hover. So right click the focus style and click copy, and then scroll up to disabled, override the item, right click empty and paste, right click again and choose make unique recursive and click OK. Now open the disable style and open the atlas texture and click edit region. With auto slice selected, choose this sprite here and click close. Now we have finished styling the custom balloon. Let's go back to test scene guide dialog and run that current scene and head over to our guide and press the E key. And you can see the dialog balloon has now been styled. Let's enter and we can now choose our options. I'll just end the conversation and close that window. And to create the emotes panel, which will contain the sprite of the character with the talking animation, let's create a new scene. So go scene, new scene, and then user interface. Right click, change type, and search for panel, and just change that type. Let's right click again and call this emotes panel. Then save the emotes panel and go to scenes, UI, and save the emotes panel scene in this folder. Then go to scenes, UI folder, and open the game UI theme. And we will use this dark wood panel on the emotes panel. So click on emotes panel and scroll down to theme, click empty, then quick load and choose game UI theme. Then for type variation, edit this and type dark wood panel and just accept that. Then add another child node and search for control and then create that node and rename this to emote. Then for custom minimum size, choose 40 and 40. Then click back on the emotes panel and choose top left. And for custom minimum size, choose 50 and 50. And then we'll scroll in. Then click on control and add another child node and search for animated sprite 2D. Then click new sprite frames and open that. Rename the default animation to emote 1 idle, click add frames, and then go into the assets folder and in UI folder, choose emotes PNG and click open. Change horizontal to 5 and vertical to 15. Then zoom in and choose the first frame and add frame. Then for this animation, choose auto load and leave it on looping. I will only add 7 animations, and the number is the position of the animation in the sprite sheet. So choose Add Animation and call this Emote2Smile, Add Frames, choose Emotes, Open, and then choose the second frames, and this is the position 2 vertically in the sprite sheet. Add 2 frames, add another animation, call this Emote3 Ear Wave, add frames, choose Emotes and Open, and choose these 5 frames, add a new animation, and call this Emote4 Blink, add frames, choose Emotes and Open, and this is the 4th one down, add frames, and call this Emote6 Love Kiss, add frames, Emotes, Open, and then count from the top. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So choose this one here, add 2 frames, add a new animation, and call this Emote7 Excited. Click Add Frames, Emotes, and Open. And again, count from the top, which is this one here. Choose Add 2 frames. And then for the last animation, call this Emote12 Talking, add frames, choose Emotes, Open, and then count from the top. And then choose that 12th sprite, zoom in, and add these 2 frames. So now let's position the emote. Click on the emote control node and choose center. And then for animated sprite 2D, let's position this. So we'll say 20, and then for the y-axis, we can make that 22. And then on the emotes panel, right click, add a child and search for timer, and rename this to emote idle timer. Then change the wait time to 5 seconds, and then turn on auto start. Then choose emotes panel, right click, and attach a script, and save this script in the scenes in UI folder and click create. And grab the animated sprite 2D and create an onReady variable, and then get the emote idle timer and create an onReady variable for that as well. Then for the next variable, we want idle emotes, which is an array, and add these 4 strings. So we have emote1 idle, emote2 smile, emote3 ear wave, and emote4 blink. Then create and override the ready method and call the play function and pass in emote1 idle to start. Then create another function called play emote with a variable called animation, which is type string and return type void. Then grab the animated sprite 2D, use a play function and pass in animation. Then back on the emote idle timer, in the inspector, click node and choose the timeout signal, and then connect that. Then click connect to create the function, and in the function, declare variable index equals ranDiRange and put a minimum value of 0 and a maximum value of 3. Then say var emote equals idle emotes, and then pass in index. So every time this method is called, it will randomly get one of these strings from the idle emotes array. Then say animated sprite 2D and play the emote. So now that we've completed this script, let's now take the emotes panel and add it to our game Dialog Balloon. Head over to the 2D view and click on the dialog node and add another child. And search for HBox container and create that. Then place the VBox container inside of the HBox container, and then click on dialog, and for layout mode choose position and just reset the size, and then set the X to be 400 and the Y to be 70. Then add a child node and search for HBox and choose HBox container and create that. Then drag the VBox container and place this inside of the HBox container. Then in the scenes and UI folder, get the emotes panel and drag that inside of the HBox container and just position this above the VBox container. Now just click the dialog node, and as you can see, it is stretching and the emotes panel is also stretched. To go back to the emotes panel scene and select the emotes panel node, and in the size settings, just click this and choose horizontal alignment shrink begin, and for vertical alignment shrink begin too. Then save the scene and then go back to Game Dialog Balloon, and you can see that now fixes that. Then click on VBox container and choose Fill for horizontal alignment and Shrink Begin for vertical alignment. Then in the inspector, if you scroll down to container sizing underneath horizontal property, choose the expander option, and this will then fix the layout for the VBox container. And now that we've resized the Emotes panel and VBox container, let's just check the HBox container, so this is okay, and then the dialog, so we can still see we've got this bar here. So just go to Anchor Preset and then just choose Full Rate, and that will resize that again. So head back over to the test scene guide dialog and let's test our scene again. So I'll just walk up to the guide, press the E key, and we can see now that we've got this all formatted nicely. So I'll just end that conversation and let's close the window. And the next thing to do is just head up to the dialog folder and in conversations, load the guide dialog, and let's replace this text with our own custom dialog. Let's remove all of the text and type Marlowe, then open brackets, and then open brackets again, and type hi with a pipe, hello, another pipe, and howdy, and then put nice to meet you. So the text in the brackets is separated into 3 tokens, and every time the script loads, it will choose one of these. So it will either be hi, hello, or howdy, and it's just chosen at random. And for the next sentence, we can say welcome to your new farm, and then I'll just finish the conversation. As you can see, the cows and chickens are hungry, and you need to grow some crops to feed them. So here are some seeds to grow some crops. And then what we're going to do here is call a method so that the guide character Marlowe gives the crop seeds to your player and enables the buttons on the toolbar. So head to the scripts folder and in the globals folder, create a new script and call the script Game Dialog Manager and create that. Now load the script and go to Project, Project Settings, Globals, and then add the global script. So it's in the script folders under Globals and Game Dialog Manager and click Open, then add the script and click Close. And then in the Game Dialog Manager script, create a new signal called Give Crop Seeds, and then create a function called Action Give Crop Seeds and return a void. Then grab the signal and emit. And then back in the dialog script, after the last sentence, say do Game Dialog Manager dot action give crop seeds. And this will call that method on that global script. So when this method is called, let's enable the tools on the toolbar. So go to Scenes in UI and go to the Tools panel script and override the ready method. And in the 2D scene, when the tool panel first loads, these 4 buttons will be disabled. When the player interacts with the guide and gets the crop seeds, we will then enable these buttons. So let's just disable these buttons first. So we'll get the tilling tool and disable that, and also turn off the mouse focus mode. So I've now disabled the button and focus mode for the tool tilling button, the watering can, the tool corn, and the tool tomato. Then go to the scripts folder and globals folder and open the tool manager script and add a new signal called enable tool and pass in a parameter which is tool and is type datatypes.tools. Then create a new function called enable tool button and pass in the tool variable, and then get the signal and emit and pass the tool. Then head back to the tools panel script and in the onReady function, get the tool manager and then call enable tool signal and connect that signal. So then create a new function called onEnable tool button, and the parameter will be tool and it's the datatypes.tool. Then say if tool equals datatypes.tools.tillground, then get the tool tilling button and then set disabled back to false to enable it, and then set the focus mode to control.focus_all so that it receives focus. Then I'll do the same for the other buttons. So I'll say elif and that completes the elif statement for all of the buttons that will be disabled and then we'll re-enable when we receive the crop seeds. Now go to Scenes, Characters, and in the Guide folder, open the guide script, and in the Ready function, get the Game Dialog Manager and connect the Give Crop Seeds signal. We'll call this function on Give Crop Seeds, and then at the bottom, let's declare that method and return void. Then we can grab the Tool Manager and call Enable Tool Button, and then enable the buttons. So the first tool I'll pass in is Till Ground. For the second one, it's Water Crops, then Plant Corn, and Plant Tomato. So back on our test scene guide dialog, let's go to the 2D scene and let's run the current scene to test it. And as you can see, in the Tools panel, these buttons are currently disabled. So let's head over to our guide and press the E key. So we'll go through the script, and then on our last sentence, here are some seeds to grow some crops. Once we hit the spacebar again, it will then call that method and should re-enable the tool buttons. So let's just press the spacebar. And as you can see now, our tool buttons are enabled. But let's just make a slight alteration to our guide conversation. So go to the guide dialog in Dialog Conversations and just remove this line here. And let's add some options. So I'll say hyphen take crop seeds. Then I'll use the name Timo for our player character. And the response from Timo is, yeah, I can grow some crops. So if the player chooses this option, then let's call the action Give Crop Seeds and enable the tools. And the other option is the player can say no, and then Timo will respond, I'm not ready to grow my farm yet, so the buttons will stay disabled. So now let's test this script. Head over to the 2D view and run current scene. And as you can see, the Tools panel UI has the disabled buttons. Let's walk over to our guide and press the E key. And let's go through the conversation. So now we have these two options. And for the first run, let's just say, no, I don't want them. And Timo responds, I'm not ready to grow my farm yet. So press the spacebar. Let's walk away from the character. And then the player can approach the guide again. And let's go through the conversation one more time. And this time round, let's take crop seeds. And Timo responds, yeah, I can grow crops. And now the buttons have been enabled. Let's stop that. So now that we've created an Emotes panel UI, let's just add that to our game screen. So go to Scenes, UI, and open the game screen, and add a child to margin container, and search for VBox container, and create that. Then position that above the margin container. Then back in the Scenes and UI folder, get the Emotes panel and place that inside of the VBox container. Then get the inventory panel and put that also in the VBox container. Then scroll in, and on the VBox container, choose horizontal alignment, shrink begin, and vertical alignment, shrink begin too. Then zoom in more, and what we want to do is to center the inventory panel. So for the Emotes panel, say horizontal alignment, shrink center, and then the inventory panel, choose this option and choose shrink center. And that will just adjust it to center both panels. Now head back over to the Emotes panel and open the Emotes panel script. So the emote idle timer will select an animation from the idle emotes every 5 seconds. So go back to the test scene guide dialog and just run this test scene. And this animation will change every 5 seconds. So if I go to the guide and press E, the animations here are also from the idle emotes array. But let's make a modification to the Game Dialog Balloon script so that this animation is the talking animation. So head back up to the dialog folder and open the Game Dialog Balloon, and then open the Game Dialog Balloon script. Then select the Emotes panel and drag, then hold Ctrl down and create an onReady variable for our Emotes panel. Then once we've got this variable, open up the base Dialog Balloon script and then just scroll down and keep scrolling until you reach the start function. Then copy the function definition from here and go back to the Game Dialog Balloon script. Then we are going to override that start function, so paste that into our script here. Then when the function is called, we need to call back down to the base class. So write super and then write start for the function and pass in these variables. Then get the emotes panel and call the function play emote. And then in the emotes panel animated sprite 2D, we will use the emote 12 talking animation. So just write that here. Then we will override another method. So go back to base game Dialog Balloon, and after the start method, copy the next function definition. Then go back to game Dialog Balloon and just paste that here. Then write super.next and pass in next ID. Then call the emotes panel and call play emote and pass in the talking animation. So that completes the script. Now head back to test scene guide dialog and let's run our test scene. So we have our emote idols array here, which is switching between those different animations. But let's now approach our guide and press the E key. And as you can see, this is the talking animation. And if we wait long enough, it will switch back to the emote idols array. Then press the spacebar and it will switch again to the talking animation. Then it switches back to another animation from the emotes idle array and then the spacebar again. And as you can see, it will keep talking as you press the spacebar. Now there's just a slight improvement for our test scenes. So go to scenes and test and just open test scene crop fields till dirt and run that test scene. Now because we are disabling the buttons in the tools panel, we ideally want these enabled when we run a test scene. To close this, head to the components folder, then go scene, new scene, other node and choose node and click create and rename this to test scene enable tool buttons component and then save the component, and in the scenes components folder just save our new test scene enable tool buttons. Attach a script and we'll just call it test scene enable tool buttons component and create that. Then in the script, override the ready method and just pass for now. Then create another function and call it enable tool buttons. Then grab the tool manager and call enable tool button and pass in the till ground tool. And then do the rest for the other disabled tools. Then back in the ready method, they call deferred, open quotes, and pass that function name. So we're using call deferred so that we just make sure that this is called after the buttons are already disabled. Let's save that. Let's go back to our test scene crop fields till dirt, and then let's add our test scene enable tool buttons to our test scene. Let's just move that to the top, and then let's run our test scene. And as you can see, the buttons are now enabled, so let's just test that. Now that brings us to the end of this tutorial on how to create your own custom Dialog Balloon complete with dialog scripts. You can interact with the guide and then choose some options which call some actions in your game. If you like what you've seen in this tutorial, please remember to hit like and subscribe to receive future updates of my other tutorials. Thank you for watching.